This video is about King Solomon.
Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into the biblical source material to unravel the incredibly paradoxical life of King Solomon. I mean, we're talking about a guy who rose to unparalleled greatness, right? He accumulated wealth that would honestly make modern billionaires look broke, and he possessed an intellect that was famous across the entire ancient world. But, as we're going to see, he ultimately experienced a tragic spiritual collapse. It's a real roller coaster, extreme highs and totally devastating lows. And honestly, it offers us some incredible insights into human nature, power, and what true wisdom actually looks like.
So let's jump right in with the big question that pretty much defines Solomon's whole life. How in the world does a man who was granted unmatched divine wisdom end up making such spectacularly foolish decisions? It's the ultimate paradox, isn't it? You'd think the absolute smartest guy in the room would know exactly how to dodge the most obvious traps. But as we unpack the timeline of his reign together, we're going to see firsthand that raw intellectual wisdom doesn't always guarantee a working moral compass.
Now, setting the stage here, Solomon's reign absolutely did not begin with some peaceful passing of the baton. Actually, it kicked off with a massive, tense succession crisis before his dad, King David, even passed away. Solomon's older brother, Adonijah, just boldly stepped up and declared himself king. And he wasn't alone. He was backed by heavy hitters like the fierce military commander Joab and Abiathar the priest. On the other side of the ring, Solomon's camp included his mother Bathsheba, the prophet Nathan, Zadok the priest, and the top-tier warrior Benaiah. So right out of the gate, we're looking at a highly volatile power struggle right in the heart of Jerusalem.
While prompted by some really quick thinking from Nathan and Bathsheba, the aging King David steps in and decisively shuts this crisis down. He orders his servants to put Solomon on his own royal mule, a massive status symbol, and parade him down to the spring of Gihon. Down there, Zadok the priest takes a horn of special oil from the sacred tent and formally anoints Solomon. And the text tells us they blew the trumpets, the people were rejoicing and playing flutes, and the celebration was so incredibly loud that the ground literally shook. Once they heard that undeniable roar, Adonijah's supporters completely panicked, the rebellion evaporated, and Solomon's rule was officially locked in.
Okay, so here is the absolute turning point in Solomon's early days, and it's rooted in deep, genuine humility. Shortly after he secures the throne, he goes to Gibeon to offer sacrifices. That night, God appears to him in a dream and basically offers him anything he wants. Just think about that for a second. Imagine being handed a blank check by the creator of the universe. What would you ask for? Well, Solomon admits he feels like a little child who doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't ask for mountains of cash, or a long life, or even for his enemies to be wiped out. Instead, he simply asks for a discerning heart to govern God's people well.
And God is absolutely thrilled by this unselfish request. Because Solomon asked for the wisdom to serve others, instead of just looking out for number one, God grants him unmatched wisdom, literally stating there's never been anyone like him and there never will be. But wait, it gets better. God promises to give him exactly what he didn't ask for: unprecedented riches and honor. We're talking a level of wealth where he'd have no equal among kings during his lifetime. Plus, God promises him a long life, with one condition: he just has to obey God's statutes like his father David did.
To really understand the sheer scale of this resulting golden era, we have to look at the numbers, and they are mind-blowing. The biblical text notes that the weight of the gold Solomon received every single year was 666 talents. To put that into perspective, he had so much wealth pouring in from trade routes, taxes, and royal gifts that he literally made silver as common in Jerusalem as the rocks on the ground. Even expensive cedar wood became as plentiful as ordinary trees. The economic explosion here was just staggering.
And right alongside that wealth, he built up massive domestic and military power. He maintained an impressive 1,400 chariots and an astounding 12,000 horses, keeping them all in specially built chariot cities. His fame spread like wildfire across the entire known world. I mean, VIPs like the Queen of Sheba traveled massive distances just to test his intellect with hard questions. And when she saw the food on his table, how his officials were seated, and his immense knowledge, the text says she was utterly overwhelmed. She actually admitted that not even half of his greatness had been told to her.
All of this unprecedented wealth and peace was building toward one crowning achievement: fulfilling his father David's ultimate dream. You see, David wasn't allowed to build a house for God because he was a man of war, but Solomon, a man of peace, was chosen for the job. Utilizing huge resources and skilled laborers from Hiram, the king of Tyre, Solomon spent 2 whole decades constructing a magnificent temple and royal palace on Mount Moriah. The inner sanctuary, the most holy place, was stunningly overlaid with pure gold, specifically designed to house the sacred Ark of the Covenant.
The dedication of this temple is arguably the absolute peak of Israel's entire history. Solomon summons all the elders and leaders to bring the ark into the sanctuary. And following this massive, spectacular festival with the sacrifice of thousands of sheep and cattle, something incredible happens. A dark cloud, physically symbolizing the glory of the Lord, sweeps in and fills the temple. It was so intense and overwhelming that the priests couldn't even stand to perform their duties. Solomon then stood before the altar, spread his hands out toward heaven, and offered this beautiful, sweeping prayer of dedication.
But here is where the tragic irony of our explainer really begins. The man with the ultimate discerning heart makes a fatal, blinding mistake. He accumulates a mind-boggling 700 wives of royal birth plus 300 concubines. Now, aside from the sheer logistical nightmare of having 1,000 in-laws, this was a devastating moral failure. God had explicitly warned the Israelites not to intermarry with certain foreign nations, clearly stating that these spouses would turn their hearts toward other gods. Yet Solomon totally ignored this for the sake of political alliances and his own desires.
And just exactly as God had warned, as Solomon grew old, these foreign wives disastrously turned his heart. His devotion wasn't fully locked in on the Lord anymore. The wisest man alive began engaging in the most foolish behavior you could possibly imagine. He actually started building high places and offering sacrifices to foreign idols right on the hills east of Jerusalem. He accommodated the worship of Ashtoreth, Chemosh, and Molech, gods that the biblical text vehemently describes as detestable. All that unrivaled brainpower, it didn't protect him from a total spiritual compromise.
Because his heart turned away from the very God who had miraculously appeared to him twice, the Lord's anger burned against Solomon. God declared a devastating judgment. He was going to literally tear the kingdom away from Solomon's royal line and hand it over to one of his own subordinates, a guy named Jeroboam. But out of loyalty to his father David, God promised not to do it during Solomon's actual lifetime, but rather during the reign of his son, Rehoboam. And even then, God would leave just one single tribe to the house of David. Just like that, the golden age was effectively over.
When we look back at his massive literary legacy, we can clearly see two very distinct mindsets that perfectly reflect his complicated life. First up, in the book of Proverbs, we get the hopeful, disciplined Solomon. He clearly understood that true wisdom doesn't start with raw intellect or a giant bank account. It originates in a proper reverence and awe for God. Proverbs is just packed with practical, moral guidance on how to live an upright, honest, and productive life under God's watchful eye.
Yet completely juxtaposed against that hopeful wisdom is the cynical, late-stage wrestling we find in the book of Ecclesiastes. Here's a man who had literally experienced it all. He looks back at his unbelievable wealth, his grand architectural achievements, his worldly pleasures, and all his deep philosophical musings, and he hits a haunting realization. Without a foundational relationship with God, it's all just meaningless, just a chasing after the wind. It leaves us with a profound question. If the wisest, richest man who ever lived couldn't find ultimate satisfaction in the things of this world, why do we think we can?
The source of our explainer today presents Solomon not as some perfect, untouchable hero, but as a really profound warning. He had the wealth of a billionaire, the mind of an absolute genius, and the direct favor of God. Yet his heart still wandered. It leaves us with a final, provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up. If the wisest man in history could be outsmarted by his own desires, what boundaries do we need to set in our own lives to protect our hearts?
Every like and subscribe is appreciated. And if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and click on the screen right now.